The crestfallen junkie of the Angel of Heidegger and the question of Das Man as quote-unquote leveling. Picture perhaps on initial thinking, or at least the thinking that it appears to us most directly in a North American Dasein. Let's look at the notion of a circle which is spinning but cannot be detected as spinning. And then we put on that circle at some point, say, a projecting ray, like a ray coming out of the orbit of the sun, and then the spinning becomes evident because the ray moves along with the spinning and indicates the spinning. But the mere spinning without any ray or other directionful indicating difference in the object on the spinning, we have only Das Man in its unalloyed or genuine state, which is to say the spinning which constitutes the life of that Das Man is the normatic, as the great psychoanalyst Christopher Bolus put it, I believe, which is he classes a certain sort of disorder. Identification of the persona of Das Man with one's actual self in such a way that, unlike with, say, a early American person, such as those who created the Codex Loud, an Aztec, there would be a simple identity of the persona and the self. Whereas with the normatic disorder, the assumption is the normal state of development would be a certain, as it were, almost sense of superiority or pride that one had broken from the mere Das Man or mere persona state and individuated oneself, differentiated oneself. So the leveling is always these cases where the Das Man power of being spinning or doing something else in a way that is indetectable, getting the advantage and therefore concealing more, rather than the so-called Eigentlichkeit or the authenticity of so-called steadfast resolution or faith, as it were. What there you have a point where you could discuss whether this notion of faith as motive force can be set beside other notions. Let's look at how Heidegger makes this sort of exercise that one has to rescue and keep in play in order to keep Heidegger alive, which is of a very slight difference from what we often get in the tradition concerning the move from the ens creatium, or things that have at one time come to be, and therefore can possibly pass away or cease to exist, with that which has never come into being and which therefore must be necessary. This division then seems to be an ontological ontic division. Heidegger makes this change by adding this so-called Nicknicktet or Nicknicknichtet, this nothing that nothings, in saying that when we would say that the thing that is not ens creatium, the necessary thing, is nothing. When we would deny that that's a problem, we would say there's nothing there. There's no God. There's nothing in that place of the necessary thing. You have all the things that came into being at one time and therefore might go away. But then you have supposedly something in contradistinction to that, which is in the eternities and eternities of eternity, and not even there, but absolutely necessary, not exposed to any possibility which comes upon the mere ens creatium, the mere creature world, which would include also Satan. This split, then we understand to also include the denial, to also include the nothing, to also include modifications on that case, in a way that if we think it clearly, we can see a subtle move in Heidegger, which is in some way instructive to raising the consciousness of our thinking, to see the details that can be keys for removing obstacles that open doors that allow light to flood out in a way that lets lit objects come to help us gain power over the world situation, which we should now think in terms of thinking that one voice that makes a great deal of sense can reach the entire planet very rapidly. So whereas in the past, things that made a great deal of sense under a certain circumstance, for example, Muhammad's reception from the non-ens creatium, the light that he received, spread like wildfire and took over very rapidly after he received that word, in a way that if there had been global communication, you wouldn't wonder if Islam would have brought the whole world into its radiance. But today, if something were to be had of such a force, it would be able to, even however, if it were something much more modest, it would be able to reach everyone. So I think we should consider that the ambition to do this is an awesomely how should I say, requiring of scrupulousness, power, which then shows itself as something which is worthy the most serious people to attempt to achieve. In other words, to attempt to achieve a discourse which is sufficiently persuasive in its direct effect that it can change most people on the earth. This is something worthy of investigating in its own right, apart from the deeper freedoms which the possibilities of thought suggest.